Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skitty, and Mally for the Insight NBA show.
G'day everyone, welcome to the Insight NBA show. I'm your host, Matty G, fresh on the back of NBA trade day. I'm not going to say it's a big one. I'm not going to say it's a massive trade because obviously it involved D'Angelo Russell. And I don't think anyone puts their hand on the heart rate. You know what? No, I love D'Lo, but I broke that down with our special guest, Kingy, from FBI Basketball International. You can check out that mini-sode for the full touch on. We'll get on that one. This show is the weekly preview for Week 11. I'm saying Week 11 because it's the 11th week of fantasy basketball. And hand on my heart, I love my Yahoo. I'm a Yahoo guy, like, you know, dib, dob, scouts and all that jazz. But it's all out of whack with the NBA Cup week. It's week 10 there. It's period 11 on Fantrax. It's week 11 of fantasy basketball, and I am going to break it all down to you. Thanks to our good friends at The Standard Squeeze. Make sure you use promo code IFS15 to get 15% off. And the codes, they stack. The Boxing Day sale, it's still on. Use this code as well, and it's basically cheap as chips. And when you give someone their trusty 4-in-1, they'd be like, I'm sorry. Look, it was worth the wait, wasn't it? And it absolutely is. It's worth the wait. Intro bit over. Let's break down the weekly schedule. We usually do it a different way. We get to the injured players, then we break down the weekly schedule. This week, I am just going to do it this way. Let's hit it with the weekly preview first.
He's heating up.
Look, this is a wonderful return to somewhat normality. And let's just call it normal. You can stream this week to your heart's content because let's look at this. 7 games Monday, 6 Tuesday, 8 Wednesday, 6 on Thursday. Oh, it's so good to see. 9 on Friday and Saturday and back to 6 on Sunday. That means there is no immediate day that is in the red. There is no for 10 or greater, no more than 20 teams playing on any day. 18 teams playing max is the top on Friday and Saturday. That tells us that we can stream really, really aggressively. Now, again, how aggressive do you want to be? Do you have 4 ads a week? Do you have 5 ads a week? I know in one league, I'm using this as a tester this week. I'm giving this a bit of a go. I have just made 2 of my 4 ads straight off the rip. And I've targeted a couple of the back-to-back sets that we're going to get into for the Monday to Tuesday to kind of set myself up here. Why? Because I know I can squeeze these guys into my lineup here. We're still really good with our streaming on that day. It gets a little bit tougher on the Friday and the Saturday. And I know that one of my days, for example, on Friday, I had no streaming spots available. Of my 12 players that can play that day, there were no streaming spots available. So I had a look through, and that's the first thing that you need to do. Have a look at your rostered guys, see where they are. To give you a bit of an insight, the 4 gamers this week are the Celtics, the Cavs, the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Clippers, Lakers, Pels, and Knicks, as well as the OKC Thunder, the 76ers, the Sacramento Kings, the Utah Jazz, and the Washington Wizards all play 4 games this week. Our 3-gamer teams across the NBA are the Hawks, the Nets, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Mavs, Pistons, Rockets, Pacers, not Pacers. I don't even know what a Pacer is. Grizzlies, Heat, the T-Wolves, Magic, Trailblazers, Spurs, and the Toronto Raptors. And there's only one team. Only the Suns play 2 games this week. So back to the bottom of your waiver wires with guys like your Royce O'Neal, who's been filling in really well. You're going to want to use these spots immediately if you're holding any players there. Did you bring in Ryan Dunn? He's in the trash straight away. Like, roll him up into a paper ball and throw him. That was my first game ever on that Apple app. You know, the one where you wind it up in the fan game with the ball? It's like that. You can roll Royce O'Neal up into a little paper ball and just pitch him at the basket because you're going to want to open up your streaming spaces straight away, especially to maximize the return you can get in what could be a very aggressive week on your waiver wire, one that we haven't seen for quite some time. And there is a whole lot of back-to-backs we can strategically target over the course of this week. So we're going to go through the guys I'm going to mention in some waiver wire guys as we go through our back-to-back sets here. I am going to break that down with our injuries and what injuries mean and where we can get some stream value. And I am going to cap it off with my absolute 5 must-add guys, or the guys who I have got my laser vision on at this point in time. Let's get down to the first lot of back-to-backs for the week. Monday and Tuesday, we've got the Cavs and the Clippers straight away. Cavs, Nang has been a great little pick up there. We've got, and this is a funny one, he came back from injury, and with only 2 games last week, he really was under the radar. Maxi Strus could be a pickup this week as well. Let's look for him, especially to start off the Monday and Tuesday. I don't think that he plays the back-to-back, but another guy I've got my eyes on here is Dean Wade. So here's where we're just dropping targets left, right, and center. Derek Jones Jr., that's a guy I've picked up. You got Kevin Porter Jr. He was out last game. Amir Coffey got those extra minutes. He won't get those this time. We're looking there. Tuesday and Wednesday, we do have the Raptors. Now, I'm holding off on my Raptors ads. I'm going to talk about their schedule a little bit later on, but basically it's a little bit tougher than most. So it might look like really sexy. Oh, I can get a back-to-back. Yeah, okay, but they do have, it's a bit of a rough one for them because they do play the Celtics. The Nets have been a bit of an upstart team as well. I don't write the Nets off incredibly all the time because I know they're young. I know they're reshaping and they've got D'Angelo, but they really play hard and they've just got Cam Thomas back in and they almost gave it to the Magic today and they lost by 1 point, falling on the sword at the end there. So I'm not aggressively chasing my Raptors. If I can, or if I have got a spot open and maybe Ochai Agbaji or Kelly Olynyk is on my waiver wire, yeah, I can bring in some dependability there. And also Chris Boucher has been playing well lately. So that's where I could roll in some Tuesday, Wednesday value for the Raptors. Moving into the Wednesday, Thursday, I've got the Brooklyn Nets, the Heat, and the 76ers. Let's focus on the Nets right now. And I'm going to wrap up the D'Lo thing in a bit of a bub, but if he is on your waiver wire at all, we add him now and we absolutely get there. The major winner, and I put this up here, look, getting to the winners straight away today. With D'Lo, he's going to get some more burn, but Noah Clowney and Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson saw 31 minutes today with the returning Cam Thomas. Now, Keon Johnson was the starting shooting guard. I expect Keon to go to the bench. I'm really curious to see what the Jalen Wilson and Keon Johnson situation is. I think down the way, although he is just a scorer, I think that's more of a Jalen Wilson lane, and we can just see what happens with those Keon Johnson moments. But definitely we're looking to add Noah Clowney where we can, especially targeting that back-to-back later on the week and getting some action out of that one there. As we move through, so here we go. We've got the Heat and the 76ers. We've got guys like Gershon Yabusele. Nikola Jovic didn't get suspended. There was that massive melee today between the Rockets and the Heat. And that means suspensions are incoming. Nikola Jovic is going to get a lot of run. Here's my number one target, most likely for the Heat there. We're moving into the to Thursday and Friday with the Celtics, Lakers, and Thunder. For the Celtics, we're looking at guys like Sam Hauser. Now, because it's a back-to-back set, and we know that KP has just been injured, and we know that Al Horford doesn't play back-to-backs, we know these guys are going to be managed. So we are looking here to see which one they're going to play. What is our injury report playing? Where does Horford play? Maybe Horford plays the first game, and they rest KP. Maybe. And then the next game, they rest Horford and they play KP. It's probably the best strategy, but we do see them roll out both of them. And then on the second night, we're getting a lot of Luke Cornett minutes. So that's a possible stream. So we can't really depend on that one spot there. Sam Hauser, of all of those guys, is probably the most dependable ad. But if it's on the second night of the back-to-back, or we just need those center rebounds or those blocks or that high field goal percentage, that's where we can look to bring in one of those guys from the Celtics later in over the course of the week. With the Lakers, Dorian Finney-Smith will find a home and a medium burn here. Max Christie's a guy that I like here. Kason Wallace and Lou Dort towards the Thursday, Friday back-to-back to set us up for the weekend is very, very important. This Thursday, Friday between the Celtics, Lakers, and the Thunder, this is a really nice ad that we can use to set ourselves up with for the final 2 days and make our last couple of ads, if we can, or our last ad really good and strategic for the back end of that back-to-back. And there are back-to-backs on Friday and Saturday. And Saturday and Sunday. Friday and Saturday, we've got the Hawks, the Nuggets, the Pistons, the Grizzlies, Knicks, and the Spurs. For the Hawks, who have been decimated by injuries lately, we're looking there. We'll go over them a little bit later. Julian Strawther is a guy that I like over at the Nuggets, where with the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart rides a lot of these waiver wire minutes. Malik Beasley is well and truly gone by all now, even though he was a waiver wire guy. Jalen Wells is probably the guy we're targeting there for the Grizzlies. With the Knicks, it's Miles McBride most likely, and for the Spurs, look, probably Stephon Castle's guy will break down a little bit later on. For the Warriors, it's probably going to be by committee with the Jazz as well. We're going to look at the injury updates later in the week for guys like John Collins, because Bryce Sensabaugh is a guy there that I like. And Isaiah Collier as well, when Keontae George has been well, has been stepping up in deeper leagues and formats that we can get a bit of a burn on. If we're doing really, really well, if we're loving our week, if we're smashing it and we're up like 8-1, 7-2, and we're looking peaches, for the end of the week, we want to finish it strong. We can rely on the Magic and the Kings to help bring us home and start off our next week really well, because they do play on the Sunday and the Monday to round out those back-to-back sets. Now, sets, as we'll say, the best schedule for me for the week. Look, I really do like the Nuggets schedule. Of all of the teams that are playing the 4 games, I really like these ones. They've actually got the Jazz in one, and they've got the Spurs twice, as well as the Atlanta Hawks, who have been a little bit under the pump with the injury bug lately. So I really like that for the Nuggets. So this is where those guys like Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther are going to get a little bit more usage. Now, I do say that the Thunder have the toughest schedule here as well. Look, the toughest schedule for them as well, because they've got the Timberwolves, they've got the Clippers, the Knicks, and the Celtics right here. So these are really good teams. The Knicks and the Celtics and the T-Wolves, all good teams, all respectable teams. Clippers also playing very well as well. So this is where I think it's a really tough schedule for them. So it's going to be hard to bring in those peripheral guys, maybe your mid-level guys, like even like your Jalen Williams and Isaiah Hartenstein, maybe a deep cut Hartenstein revenge game from his time in the Clippers we can expect. But I think those fringy guys like the Kayson Wallaces and Lou Dortz will probably still get burned for the Thunder, but just bear in mind that as they have that. And the Warriors and the Thunder, they all do play, though, funnily enough, even though that is their case, they do play those all at home. Some really little interesting schedule notes here. OKC and Golden State do play all 4 of their games at home this week, whereas Atlanta, Memphis, they are all away, and the Heat play the New Orleans Pelicans and the Utah Jazz as well. A couple of nice little pickups there, especially with that Jovic ad that we can target and all those outs for those guys. So it's just a little bit of a mention there that I think we should pay some attention to a little bit later. Just these little nuances in the schedule, these things where we're picking them up. The Warriors, okay, well, Trace Jackson Davis, let's get him in. They're playing all at home. They've got 4 games this week. Great. Bring in him. Does Waters get a run? Pods get a run? These guys playing at home with the tampering lineups. I think that covers it for the major points of this one before I get to our must. Do I do it? Look, I'm going to save the must adds for the end, and let's do the injury update. All right, walking around on a broken leg or colds or bumps or snivels or whatever injury report is of the NBA, let's break down the teams from A all the way through to Z with what it is. Now, the Hawks, as I said, they have been under the weather. We've got Bogdan Bogdanovic. He's been out, I believe, the last 3 games. He's got a leg contusion. He could be returning in week 11. And I know he's been added to a lot of waiver wires for those guys who were chasing it last week. And he also hasn't been the hit sensation that we've needed him to be. So he's probably a look later in this week. Okongwu, if he's been dropped to your waiver wire, we look to bring him back into our lineups. He has actually missed the last 5 games with a knee issue. If he gets dropped, we look to bring him in, especially if we have an IR spot and that person was full up, and we can take advantage of that. That's a look we want to have. Dyson Daniels missed Saturday's game with an illness, but he'll be back in line this week. And Larry Nance, he injured his hand the other day, so he's going to miss some time, and he was getting a lot of those backup minutes as well for the center for Onyeka Okongwu. Vit's been getting some run there. We could probably bring him in as well. In Boston, KP, now he missed the Sunday game, and Drew Holiday was questionable for that one. So again, we're looking for KP status during this week. Horford had an atrocious one. That doesn't happen all the time. He was actually in good form, but just watching this Kristaps thing, because the Celtics are going to handle him with kid gloves as much as possible as they chase back-to-back titles this year. In Brooklyn. Now, Zaire Williams, he's been out with his sprained knee. I think that's the thing to look at with Brooklyn is not injury-related, but it is trade-related. Shake Milton out, obviously, there, as well as Dorian Finney-Smith with D'Angelo Russell coming in. Charlotte, now, LaMelo was out with his ankle and wrist soreness. We've had Brandon Miller, who's been out. They have the ankle and knee injuries between him and Cody Martin. They're looking to return this week. I do think we miss maybe a game for Brandon Miller this week, so we're probably looking to bring in Cody Martin if he's back first there. Also, Nick Richards. We're looking to have a look at how he plays out this week and what they're doing with Mark Williams. Mark Williams is ramping up his minutes and has been an absolute huge one. Now, Jalen Smith, he missed Saturday's game with the Bucks. He had an injured ankle. He is going to be returning. Ayo Dosunmu, who's been dropped to a lot of waiver wires. I think a nice little ad. He's got a calf strain. Look, he's going to be out indefinitely, and he's going to be out for at least this week. If someone's dropped him in a league and they're flying really high, pick him up and put him on your team. I think he's a good look for the rest of the season. I think he was a great ad last year. But again, it is risky business, especially when you're missing a whole week out of someone. Can you stand to lose the week? And if you can, these are the kind of ads you must be making around week 11 in fantasy, because this is now the halfway mark. We're over it, and you've got to push for the playoffs. Look, all smooth sailing in Cleveland. They had a restful week last week with only 2 games. Look for them to be flying high this one. Now, Luka is out for a month, as we know. Luka Doncic is out. I like the peripheral guys here. Derek Lively, he missed Saturday's game. He's going to possibly be back this week. And Najee Marshall, he got into that punching biffo with Yusuf Nurkic. He's going to be out all this week. So although Najee Marshall is a guy I'd usually look to add, it's guys like Quentin Grimes who I think are really going to be the benefits in the Mavericks this week. So let's make sure that we can get him into our lineup when we can. A calf strain has been sidelining Aaron Gordon over in Denver, and he will hopefully be returning later in this week. All smooth sailing over in Detroit, where in the Golden State, Moses Moody, he was out through injury management on Saturday. He'll be back in this one. But Brandon Podziemski did leave that one with an abdominal strain and did return. Now, we've seen the abdominal strains take a little while. Look, it depends on the severity of this injury. I would expect we could see him miss a couple games this week, but if that abdominal strain goes out for longer, we even saw Nick Richards miss multiple weeks with an abdominal strain earlier, and then because it was then tied to an oblique strain and we didn't get clear reporting. We get clearer reporting from the Golden State Warriors than we do the Charlotte Hornets, but I do not think with the depth of their team that they're going to really rush Pods in, because he was in and out of lineups interchangeably quite a lot, playing a lot better lately, but I do think that they rest that up and they make sure that he is okay. In Houston, let's not even worry about the ejections. A whole bunch of guys are going to miss time. That is a massive hit to our fantasy lineups, especially Amen Thompson. He absolutely creamed Tyler Hero. You can watch that on replay and just laugh. Whereas in Indiana, Obi Toppin is back in lineups later for this week, where we've got another couple games out with Aaron Naismith. He should be coming back in possibly in this week, and he is a name that we are going to absolutely target on our waiver wire if he comes back and takes away those Benedict Mathurin moments and gets back the momentum that he had. In the Clippers, we had Kevin Porter Jr. out with an illness over the weekend. Look to add him early this week for the Monday, Tuesday Clippers back-to-back, and you can make a really good start, especially if you're looking for those point guard stats. Now, the big news here is that Kawhi Leonard is going to be playing according to his targeting. He's got even target acquired radar sites on the 4th of January game at home versus the Atlanta Hawks. So we will be seeing Kawhi Leonard, if you've got him stashed in IR, at the end of this week. Make sure we add him back in there. On Saturday, LeBron James missed that game with the Kings due to illness. They still got up there, a huge one from Anthony Davis. Gabe Vincent left that game with an oblique strain again, and we did not return. We've been waiting for an update on Gabe Vincent. But again, his minutes, and he's going to be taking a hit with this trade-in, and he can always lose minutes there to Shake Milton, who, if Gabe Vincent is out, Shake Milton could possibly be getting some more burn off the bench straight away. Now, in Memphis, Brandon Clark is questionable over the weekend, but the big thing was in Sunday that Ja Morant missed that with an AC joint sprain. Let's just see how they manage him around. That means Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to get a lot more of those backup minutes there. Whereas Marcus Smart's injury is going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, and Santi Aldama is still out with his ankle sprain. In Miami, Jimmy Butler is out again. He is working his way back up for conditioning, and Drew Smith, his torn Achilles. He was an ad. We were loving what he was doing. He was an ad, and then we said that on the Must Add show. And the next day, He got that the Achilles tendon issue, and he'll be out for the rest of the season there. Giannis missed out last week. He's been out through illness, though, so looking to be returning strong in week 11. All smooth sailing again over in Minnesota, whereas in New Orleans, another week and a half possibly on the sidelines there for Brandon Ingram, whereas Zion Williamson and Jose Alvarado are going to be returning this week to the practice court, and they're week to week, which means if they're week to week and they're practicing, we could see them inserted into lineups very soon. I expect we see Alvarado back before Zion this week, whereas Karlo Matovic has a disc protrusion and he's going to be out for at least the rest of this week. And into week 12, we're waiting for a week-to-week update. New York are flying ahead. No injury reports there. Whereas in OKC, Lou and Cason Wallace, now they missed Saturday's game. But they will be returning into the lineup this week, so we can look to add them. Whereas Alex Caruso, he's had a hip issue. I believe it's a hip strain. Look to him to be reinserted into lineups possibly later this week, or again, like they have with Caruso after signing that deal, they'll just ease him back because they do have by committee appointments for OKC and can play it through whenever. Over in Philadelphia, Andre Drummond, now he's missed a couple of games with a toe issue, just a sore big toe. It's a contusion. It's a sore big toe. This is where Gershon Yabusele has been a really great add and playing very well in those last couple of games. We've got a couple of back-to-backs for the Sixers here. So even if Drummond is returning to the lineups, I wouldn't imagine that we would see him play in both of those if he's returning with his toe issue. They might rest him for what I call that injury management. Whereas Eric Gordon has missed the last 3. He had surgery on his mouth. He could be returned and inserted into lineups later in this week. Not that the fantasy relevant. Whereas KJ Martin is still on the sideline, is going to be evaluated into week 13. Probably in week 12 and a half. In 12, he'll be reevaluated and reinserted into lineups in week 13 as a waiver option. Now, as I said earlier, Royce O'Neal, we can drop him off. He had an ankle injury, didn't return. We don't have to worry about these guys. The big thing in there is Devin Booker still hasn't returned from the groin strain. The good news for the Phoenix Suns is that they only play 2 games this week, and Devin Booker will probably be out for maybe at least one of those and return later in this week, which is good for D-Book owners, but also bad for D-Book owners. It's good because he's coming back. It's bad because you get 1 game from him. So you might just want to leave him in that IR spot and use that as an extra streaming spot if you have it available, instead of use it for the 1 and then reinsert him back into that IR spot. It might be the way you're playing it. Let's just see that. Whereas Yusuf Nurkic isn't going to be playing Jack Dudley's squad this week because he is currently suspended. We can look again there for those Ryan Dunn minutes and Iguodala, I could probably say we'll get some more minutes there. In Portland, Timoni Kamara, he missed Saturday's game. He's got a foot sprain. He's going to be back up. Robert Williams, he's been out with an ankle injury, back into lineups possibly later this week, but no back-to-backs there to target for the Trailblazers, so we could probably leave him there. Sacramento is all fine and dandy. So too is the San Antonio Spurs situation. But there's a lot going on in Toronto. Pirtle, Brown, Sheed, Fernando, Jacoby Walter, and Davion Mitchell. They were all questionable going into the matchup for the Hawks. Only a few played, but this looks to be the week that we get Emmanuel Quickley back in our lineups. He has been training. That left arm has been incorporating apparently into some light workouts. They don't want to just announce it. That he's ramped up to taking contact, but it looks to be returning in this week for our Emmanuel Quickley owners, which for me, being heavily invested in Emmanuel Quickley, I very much look forward to. Let's hope we can get him activated and back into our lineups towards the tail end of week 11. We're in Washington. Jordan Poole missed Saturday's game with a hip contusion. Looking for an update on him. Bub Carrington there gets the bump if we need to. That wraps up the injury update. Let's get down to our last of our waiver targets.
Targets acquired.
Look, as I said, this week is absolutely huge. We got a whole bunch of guys that we can look to. Now, I've mentioned a few of them already. I mentioned Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. We've got guys like, as I said, Gershon Yabusele, I really like over this week in the Philadelphia 76ers. But you've also got guys for the 76ers in that case, like Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre Jr., if he is back on, especially for those point scorers. Look, we do have the Lakers back-to-back set. As I said later in the week, I like Max Christie and Dalton Knecht there. DFS will definitely be a play, I think, by this point in time. But those are the guys that I'm looking at later in the week. Look, We do have the Nuggets. They've got those games out. So as I said, we have Peyton Watson and Julian Strother. Look, I think we can give looks to guys like Russell Westbrook if we have to there. And I did mention there, we do have Stephon Castle and Julian Champagny getting a bit of a run over with the San Antonio Spurs. But I have picked apart a whole bunch of other guys this week that we can get that one. Look, as I said, Chris Boucher is another option. Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, these guys on the back-to-backs through the week. For the Cavaliers, deeper leagues, looking like guys like Max Strus, I don't think plays the back-to-back, but I'm looking for Niang, who's been playing really well off the bench. Karis LeVert, is he there? Can we grab him? We can absolutely do that to start our week. Also, we can grab guys like Ty Jerome for point guard minutes. So he has been trending down after really strong starts at the beginning of the season. So these are the guys that I'm really looking at here because I don't think there's anyone getting a massive bump from the Hawks with their stats. Jalen Wells is the other guy there. With the Knicks later in the week, we've got guys like Miles McBride at the same time. We're looking at Miles McBride. We're looking at Stephon Castle. They're around those same similar kind of guys later in the week before we move into finishing off with guys from the Jazz like Bryce Sensabaugh. As I said, if John Collins is still out, Isaiah Collier, if Keontae George misses any more time, we're looking for these guys later in the week as well. The 5 guys, though, that I've pulled out that I really like to look at for this week who have made my targets are these guys. Derrick Jones Jr. from the Los Angeles Clippers to start. Chris Boucher on that back-to-back set. We can get rebounds, blocks are hard and high field goal percentage. So I really like that to chance it with earlier in the week. My stream radar here is now with full ad on Noah Clowney's situation. The Nets do have that back-to-back set later in the week. But with his new situation, I want the defensive stats, as I said earlier in the week, earlier in the pod with Kingy today. I want those to return before I'm like all about him being this huge upside guy that everyone's dreaming of. They're just not there right now. That's what really buoys him. Gershon Yabusele with Philadelphia, I'm really liking him out, especially with the Drummond out. And Dorian Finney-Smith is another guy that I'm liking later in the week that I can bring into my waiver wire just to help steady me down for those high field goal percentage and do a little bit of everything. And I think he's going to do that jack of all trades. JJ Redick said it best in one of his tweets that's come out like the coach likes him. There's not what is it like? You've just got to love a guy like DFS. Because he does everything. He's a jack of all trades and a master of none. And this is a guy that we want to pull into our lineups later in on the week. Now, as I said at the end of the show, I would recap what we did with the trade winners and losers on D'Angelo Russell. You can check that pod. The link is down below for that one as well. The big winners are D'Angelo Russell, Noah Clowney, Jalen Wilson. And I think later on in the season, we will get a slight bump to Austin Reeves, but he has been playing recently of the caliber we would expect him to play. So I don't want to say that it's all hinged on the trade away from D'Angelo Russell for him to be getting the value that he is now, because he's already showing that worth. This is what he's going to be doing for the rest of the season. He's in the starting lineup. There's no splitting minutes with D'Lo and him playing off ball and D'Lo playing off ball and LeBron being the default point guard. And Reeves and LeBron have that figured out. They're running that really, really well, that offense. And so I think that's where he sticks for the outlay for the rest of the season. What we've seen from him from the last couple of weeks, especially doing that heavy lifting that he has been doing in the absence of LeBron James. But there's always two sides to this coin. There's the right side, there's the wrong side, and also there's going to be probably the truth. And the truth is there's always losers in these trades. And those are the guys who lose minutes and opportunity. Ben Simmons, Keon Johnson, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Rui Hachimura can take a hit, and Dorian Finney-Smith, although I'm singing his praises, he takes a hit as well. Matty, why do you say that? Like you've been saying, like add DFS. Well, yeah, of course he's going to take a bloody hit because he's been the starting almost center at times, especially when Nick Claxton was out over in the Brooklyn Nets. And I do think that he loses a bit of usage, but I think his real basketball relevance is much stronger than his fantasy relevance. He's still going to be viable. He's still an excellent streaming target. We can use him, but he does take a hit where we can use him and stick him around for maybe a couple of weeks at a time, depending on the schedule. He is a guy that we're going to be able to turn and burn in our lineups week to week, but he does take a bit of a hit and he will be useful for this week. Also very useful is our Patreon. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you get fully invested into that one. Become a member today. The links are down below. Join the Patreon. Get all of the ads that you need to, including this.
Want to take your fantasy sports game to the next level? Insight Fantasy Sports are bringing you exclusive content all year round, such as preseason draft guides, player rankings, waiver wire advice, statistical deep dives, priority podcast questions, and tons more. So what are you waiting for? Get full access to the experts. Go to patreon.com/Insight Fantasy Sports and subscribe to Insight Unlimited today.
Get all you need. Get it from Insight. Get us at Insight F Sports. Get us on Instagram with the brand new Instagram account, Insight Fantasy NBA, and you can get me at NBAGWiz on X and on Blue Sky. That's where I live. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're winning your waiver wire battles. Go ahead and hard. I'll speak to you soon for must adds and sell highs later in the week. Take care, everyone. Be well and early. Happy New Year.